A long time ago, there lived a beautiful princess in a very big palace. She is very beautiful with her blue eyes and long black hair. Her skin is white and smooth. Thus, she was called Snow White. She had a stepmother who was always envious of her beauty. Her stepmother was also beautiful, and the magical mirror always said that, every day and every time she asked, "Mirror on the wall, who is the most beautiful in this world?" Her stepmother asked, "You are the most beautiful woman in this world, Majesty," the magical mirror answered. But one day, the stepmother asked the magical mirror again, but the answer to the magical mirror made her angry. "Mirror on the wall, who is the most beautiful in this world?" the stepmother asked. "My queen, you are beautiful, but Snow White is more beautiful than you," the magical mirror answered. The stepmother was very angry. Then she asked her trusted servant to bring Snow White to go away from the palace and kill her. However, the servant did not kill Snow White. He let her go by herself. "Please don't kill me. I will go to the woods and I will not come back again," Snow White begged. "Go away, poor princess," the servant said. The servant thought that wild animals would eat her, and letting Snow White made his hurt relief and free from the pressure. In the forest, Snow White was alone and afraid. She did not know where she had to go. But suddenly she saw a small peculiar cottage. She wondered who lived there, and then she decided to go inside it. In the cottage there are 7 beds and a kitchen. Snow White was very tired and suddenly she fell asleep. In the afternoon, 7 of the dwarfs who lived in the hut went home. They were surprised to see a young woman there. One of the dwarfs roused her and asked who she was. Snow White told them her sad story. The 7 dwarfs also understood her feeling and asked her to stay with them in the cottage. Meanwhile, at the palace, the servant went back and told the stepmother that Snow White had been killed. Then the stepmother asked the magical mirror once again who the most beautiful in this world is. And still, the magical mirror answered that Snow White, who was living in a small cottage with the 7 dwarfs, was the most beautiful woman. The stepmother was very angry, and she planned something bad for Snow White. Then the stepmother disguised herself as an old woman who sold a bucket of poisoned apples and go to the cottage. In the cottage, Snow White was warned not to open the door to strangers by the 7 dwarfs. The stepmother finally arrived at the cottage and began offering the apples to Snow White. "I cannot open the door and let anyone come in. The 7 dwarfs have warned me," Snow White said. "Okay, I just want to give this apple to you." "No, I cannot take anything from anyone," Snow White explained. Snow White refused to open the door, but the stepmother continued to pursue. Ultimately, Snow White opened the door and bought an apple, and then she ate it. Therefore, Snow White was poisoned when an apple fell beside her. In the evening, when the 7 dwarfs went home, they were very surprised. They saw Snow White lying on the floor with a pale face and a poisoned apple beside her. The 7 dwarfs were sad to see Snow White dying. And then the 7 dwarfs decided to make bedding for Snow White, which was made of beautiful crystal to make her alive. Every day 7 dwarfs wait for miracles that when Snow White could be awake. One day there was a prince of a kingdom who saw a beautiful woman lying on the bed of a crystal. He was also asking the dwarf to tell him what happened, and the dwarf told it. "Let me have Snow White and I will give you everything you want," the prince asked. However, the 7 dwarfs refused it. They did not want to be separated from Snow White, even though he would pay by gold in this world. "I ask it much because I cannot live without seeing Snow White. If you agree, I will bring all of you too. I also take you as my brother." And then finally the 7 dwarfs agree. Then the princess kissed Snow White to show his attention. Suddenly, Snow White was awake. The fact was that the kiss from the prince broke the evil spell. After that, the prince asked her to get married to him. Snow White said yes. And then since then, Snow White lived in the prince's big palace happily ever after.